AITA for pulling out my phone at dinner after my sister-in-law's rich boyfriend mocked me. My name is Nathan Cross. I am 34 years old and I work as a senior compliance officer at the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, in Chicago. It is not a glamorous job. No one makes movies about compliance officers. We do not have corner offices or corporate expense accounts. What we do is enforce consumer protection laws, investigate fraud, and ensure that companies are not scamming the American public. The pay is decent, the government benefits are solid, but I will never get rich. And in the last 3 years of marriage to Emily, that was perfectly fine until her younger sister, Brooke, started dating Trevor Lancaster. The first time I heard about Trevor was 6 weeks ago. Emily came home after having lunch with her sister, absolutely beaming with excitement. Nathan, you are not going to believe it. Brooke met someone amazing. He's a senior executive at a consultancy downtown. He drives a Porsche. He has a luxury penthouse in River North. He takes her to all those amazing restaurants. That's great, I said, without taking my eyes off the report I was reading about predatory lending practices. Emily frowned at my lack of enthusiasm. Could you at least pretend you're happy for her? I am happy for her, I replied. I hope he treats her well. He's taking her to Paris next month, Emily continued. First class, 5-star hotels. He sent me photos of the places they're going to stay. It looks like something out of a magazine. In the following weeks, Trevor became the only topic of conversation in Emily's family. Her mom, Patricia, called constantly with updates on Brooke's new relationship. Brooke says Trevor knows the mayor. Brooke says Trevor just closed a $20 million deal. Brooke says Trevor is taking her to a charity ball where tickets cost $1,000 each. Every conversation seemed designed to highlight everything Trevor had, and I did not. Emily also started making comments, small things at first. Trevor took Brooke to that new chop house downtown, the one we couldn't get a reservation at for our anniversary. Oh, Brooke posted photos of the jewelry Trevor bought her. Did you see the size of those diamonds? I swallowed hard and kept working. My job at the FTC demanded a lot, especially lately. We were in the middle of a major investigation into several companies we suspected were operating sophisticated pyramid schemes, disguised as legitimate consultancies. I was working 60 hours a week, building cases, coordinating with lawyers, and preparing for potential lawsuits. Then came the dinner invitation. Emily's mom wanted to host a family dinner so everyone could get to know Trevor properly. The tone in Patricia's voice when she called made it clear that attendance was not optional. Nathan, I hope you'll be on your best behavior, Patricia said. Trevor is very successful and well-connected. We don't want him to think Brooke's family is beneath him. I'm sure he'll be very gracious, I replied, already dreading the night. Emily was more direct when she brought it up later. Please don't talk about work. Nobody wants to hear about government regulations and compliance violations over dinner. What should I talk about then? I don't know. Sports, current events. Just try to be pleasant. For once. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. When had I become the embarrassment Emily needed to manage? The dinner was scheduled for Saturday night at Patricia and Donald's house in Barrington. Emily spent 3 hours getting ready, trying on 4 different dresses before settling on the most expensive one she owned. You need to change, she said, looking at my khakis and dress shirt. Trevor's going to be in a suit. I'm comfortable like this. Nathan, please. Just this once, can you try to look successful? I changed into my only good suit, the one I wore for important meetings at work. It was 5 years old and tailored when I weighed 10 pounds less, but it would have to do. We drove to Barrington in our 7-year-old Civic, Emily checking her makeup in the visor mirror every few minutes. When we arrived at her parents' house, a silver Porsche 911 was already parked in the driveway, gleaming under the porch light like a trophy. Trevor Lancaster was exactly what I expected. Late 20s, perfectly coiffed hair, a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He had that rehearsed charm that wealthy people develop, the kind that makes everyone in the room feel like the most important person he has ever met. When we walked in, he was holding court in the living room, with Patricia and Donald hanging on his every word while Brooke sat beside him with an expression I can only describe as adoration. Nathan, Emily, Patricia called out. Come meet Trevor. We walked over and Trevor stood, extending a hand with a smile that showed too many teeth. Nathan, right? Emily's told me a lot about you. I hope it was all good things. Trevor's handshake was firm, bordering on aggressive. Absolutely. She mentioned you work for the government. Must be interesting. The way he said interesting made it clear he meant boring. Dinner started pleasantly enough. Patricia had outdone herself, serving a meal that could have been from a Michelin-starred restaurant. Trevor dominated the conversation, telling stories about business deals, encounters with celebrities, and exotic trips. Brooke and I are thinking about Bali for New Year's. You ever been to Bali, Nathan? No, I haven't had the chance. What a shame. It's incredible. Of course, you need to know the right resorts. The tourist traps are a nightmare, but if you have contacts, there are private villas most people don't even know exist. I have a guy who handles all of that for me. Donald, Emily's dad, was clearly impressed. Must be nice to have that kind of access. Trevor shrugged modestly. It's all about who you know. Business is just relationships. You build the right network, and everything else falls into place. Patricia turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Nathan, why don't you tell Trevor what you do? Emily tensed up beside me. I work for the Federal Trade Commission, I said simply. Oh, Trevor said, his interest already fading. Government work. What does that entail exactly? We protect consumers from fraudulent business practices, investigations, enforcement, that sort of thing. Trevor nodded slowly, that condescending smile growing. So, you're basically a bureaucrat? I felt Emily's hand on my leg under the table, a warning not to react. Something like that. Can't pay very well, though, right? Government salaries are public record. I looked up the GS pay scale once. You probably make, what? 70, 80,000 a year. The table went silent. Emily's face was flushed. Before I could answer, Trevor continued, don't get me wrong. Someone has to do those jobs. Society needs people willing to work for less than they're worth. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Brooke laughed. She actually laughed at her sister's husband being insulted. Trevor's company just secured a consulting contract with 3 Fortune 500 companies. It's a completely different world. I'm sure it is, I replied calmly. Patricia quickly intervened, steering the conversation. Trevor, tell us more about that charity ball next week. Oh, it's going to be incredible, Trevor said, happy to return to his favorite subject. The governor will be there. Several senators, CEOs from all the big Chicago companies. Tickets are $10,000 a couple. But it's really about networking. The right conversation at an event like that can lead to million-dollar deals. That's the kind of thing Nathan would never understand. In government work, you don't really operate in that world. You're just pushing papers while the rest of us are out here, actually creating value. Emily's hand squeezed my leg. Please don't make a scene, she whispered. I was not planning to. Patricia nodded along with everything Trevor said. We're so proud of Brooke for finding someone so accomplished. Donald cleared his throat uncomfortably, but said nothing. Trevor leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying himself. No offense, Nathan, but I don't know how you do it. Working a 9-to-5 government job, driving what was it? A Honda, Emily murmured. He made it sound like a disease. Scraping by while you watch everyone else succeed. It would drive me crazy. But I guess some people are just built differently. Some of us need the thrill, the challenge, the adrenaline of closing big deals. Others settle for mediocrity. The word mediocrity hung in the air like smoke. I saw Emily flinch. Brooke smiled, clearly delighted that her boyfriend was putting her brother-in-law in his place. Patricia seemed satisfied, as if Trevor had confirmed everything she always thought about me. Even Donald, who had always been kind, could not meet my eyes. Trevor, Emily said with a weak voice. That's a little harsh. I'm just being honest, Trevor replied. No use sugarcoating reality. Nathan seems like a nice guy, but let's be real, he's never going to make real money in public service. He's never going to drive a Porsche or take you to Paris or live the kind of life Brooke and I are building. It's not his fault. He just doesn't have the ambition. Some people are leaders, and some are followers. It takes all kinds to make the world go round. It was then that he made his critical mistake. The consulting firm I work for, we deal with this all the time. We help companies optimize their business models, maximize profitability. Sometimes that means restructuring, sometimes it's finding new markets. Sometimes it's creative financial engineering. We're Apex Strategic Solutions. Maybe you've heard of us. We've been in the news quite a bit lately. I had heard of them. In fact, I had spent the last 4 months building a federal case against them. My phone was in my pocket, containing documentation that Trevor's company was operating a sophisticated pyramid scheme that had defrauded over 15,000 people of approximately $60 million. They recruited people with promises of high investment returns, used money from new investors to pay off earlier ones, and employed aggressive sales tactics that specifically targeted the elderly and other vulnerable populations. Something in my expression must have shifted because Trevor noticed. "What's that look? You have heard of us?" "Yes," I replied calmly. "We're one of the fastest growing consulting firms in the Midwest," Trevor continued, oblivious. "We just closed a huge round of funding. $20 million from venture capital investors who see the potential in what we're building. My compensation package last year was over $400,000, and I'm not even a partner yet. In 2 more years, I'll be making 7 figures. Easy. That's the difference between what I do and what you do, Nathan. I create value. I build wealth. You just push papers and collect a government paycheck." Emily was mortified. "Nathan," she said urgently, "let's go." No, I had been quiet long enough. "Actually, Trevor, I do have a question about your company." Trevor's smile widened. "Sure, shoot. Happy to explain how real business works." "How exactly does Apex Strategic Solutions generate revenue? Is it primarily through consulting fees, or does it rely more on recruiting new clients who then recruit other clients in a multi-level structure?" Trevor blinked. "We have multiple revenue streams. It's quite complex. So, the people you recruit pay an upfront fee to join the program, correct? And then they're incentivized to recruit others, with commission structures that heavily favor those at the top of the pyramid?" The table went completely silent. Trevor's smile was gone. "I don't like what you're insinuating." "I'm not insinuating anything," I replied calmly. "I'm stating facts about your company's business model. Facts my team at the FTC has spent 4 months documenting." The color drained from Trevor's face. "What?" I pulled out my phone and opened the file I had been reviewing that very morning. Trevor Lancaster, Senior Vice President of Client Acquisition at Apex Strategic Solutions, also known as Director of Recruitment in internal documents. Compensation is tied directly to the number of new investors you bring into the scheme, with specific bonuses for recruiting individuals over the age of 65. The table erupted. "What is he talking about?" Brooke demanded. Emily was staring at me with an expression I could not decipher. Trevor stood up now, his face a blotchy red. "You have no right to investigate me personally." "I did not investigate you personally," I replied. "I investigated your company. You just happen to be one of the key players in a fraudulent organization that is currently under federal investigation for operating a pyramid scheme, wire fraud, and targeting vulnerable populations." Patricia shook her head in disbelief. "Nathan, this is ridiculous. Trevor's company is very successful. They have legitimate investors." I turned my phone around so everyone could see the screen. "These are internal Apex documents obtained through a federal subpoena. This shows the actual revenue structure. 93% of the money coming into Apex Strategic Solutions is from recruitment fees paid by new clients. Less than 7% comes from actual consulting services. That is the classic definition of a pyramid scheme." I swiped to the next document. This is an email from Trevor to his recruitment team. He's congratulating a subordinate named Justin for successfully pressuring a 72-year-old widow to invest her entire retirement savings. $5,000. They told her she would double her money in 6 months. Instead, she lost everything. "You son of a..." Trevor started, but his voice was shaking. "Those documents are confidential. They're evidence," I corrected. "In a federal investigation that has been ongoing since March. We have testimony from over 200 victims. We have financial records that show exactly how the money moves in your organization. We have recordings of sales calls where your team makes false promises about guaranteed returns. We have everything we need for multiple felony convictions." Brooke was crying now. "Trevor, tell them it's not true." Trevor was frantically typing on his phone, probably calling his lawyer. Patricia looked like she had been slapped. Emily was still staring at me, her expression something I had never seen before. "The luxury penthouse," I continued, "is leased, not owned. The Porsche is financed at a rate that would make any sane person dizzy. That trip to Paris was paid for with a corporate card funded entirely by money from your victims. Trevor's personal bank account, according to records we subpoenaed last week, shows a pattern of living far beyond his actual means, propped up by fraudulent commissions. Donald finally spoke. Is any of this true, Trevor? Trevor's face was a mask of rage and fear. I don't have to listen to this. You have no right to discuss an ongoing investigation. Actually, I said, the investigation is no longer ongoing. It was concluded last Tuesday. The Department of Justice is preparing to file charges. I'd estimate you have about 2 weeks before federal agents show up at your door with arrest warrants. The silence that followed was absolute. Trevor grabbed his coat and stormed out, slamming the door behind him without another word. Brooke ran after him, sobbing. Patricia and Donald remained at the table, frozen. The elaborate dinner they had prepared was suddenly irrelevant. Emily was looking at me as if she were seeing me for the first time. You knew, she said softly. You knew all of this when we got here tonight. I knew his company was under investigation, I confirmed. I did not know he was going to spend the entire dinner ridiculing me and calling me a mediocrity. That part was just an added bonus. But you let him, Emily said. You let him humiliate you in front of my entire family. I let him reveal exactly who he is, I corrected. And I let your family show me exactly where I stand with all of you. Patricia, I said, turning to my mother-in-law. You told me to be on my best behavior tonight. You did not want me to embarrass Trevor. Mission accomplished. I did not say a word while he spent 2 hours explaining how my career is worthless and my life is pathetic compared to his. Donald, Emily's dad, finally found his voice. Nathan, I had no idea. None of us did. Did you not? I asked. You heard him brag about his company. You heard him talk about helping companies maximize profits through creative financial engineering. You heard the red flags, but you were too dazzled by the Porsche and the trips to Paris to ask any real questions. Patricia's face turned red. That's not fair, Nathan. Is it not? I stood up. Trevor Lancaster is exactly the kind of person my job exists to stop. He's a con artist who preys on vulnerable people and uses their money to fund a lifestyle designed to impress people just like you. And when he walked into your house tonight, instead of being skeptical of someone who seemed too good to be true, you all decided that I was the problem. Why do I not drive a Porsche? Why can't I take Emily to Paris? Why do I work a public service job that actually matters instead of tricking people out of their life savings? Emily was crying now. Nathan, I'm so sorry. I should have defended you. You're right, I said. You should have. I left the house and drove home alone. Emily stayed at her parents' that night. The next morning, she came home early. We need to talk, she said. I was in our living room, reading the paper and drinking coffee, as if it were any other Sunday. Okay, I said. I'm listening. I was wrong, Emily said, sitting across from me. My whole family was wrong. We got so caught up in the glamour and the money, and we treated you like you did not matter. I mattered, I corrected. I just did not matter as much as Trevor's Porsche and his fake success story. Emily flinched, but did not argue. My mom called this morning. She and my dad want to apologize. Do they want to apologize? Or are they just embarrassed they got duped? Probably both, Emily admitted. Brooke is a wreck. She really thought Trevor cared about her. He probably did, in his own way, I said. Sociopaths are capable of affection. They just prioritize themselves above all else. Emily was quiet for a long moment, then said something I did not expect. I've been treating you the way Trevor treated those victims. What do you mean? You offer safety, stability, genuine care, and I've been chasing this fantasy of something more exciting, more flashy. I made you feel like you were not enough because you do not fit into some materialistic ideal I bought into. She was crying again. You are enough, Nathan. Your job matters. What you do protects people, and I was too shallow to appreciate it. I wanted to stay angry. Part of me thought I should make her work for forgiveness. But the truth was, Emily's admission meant something. She was not making excuses. She was taking responsibility. I accept your apology, I said. But things need to change, Emily. I need to know you're on my side, even when I'm not the most impressive person in the room. Even when someone else has more money or a better car or a flashier life. Especially then. You're right, Emily said. I will be better. I promise. Over the next 2 weeks, the Trevor Lancaster situation exploded exactly as I had predicted. Federal agents arrested him along with 4 other executives from Apex Strategic Solutions. The company was shut down, its assets were seized, and victims were directed to a federal compensation fund. The story made local, then national news as reporters dug into just how many people had been defrauded. Brooke called Emily every day, alternating between despair and rage. How could I have been so stupid? I saw the signs, I just did not want to believe them. Patricia called to formally apologize. Nathan, I judged you unfairly. You were trying to warn us in your own way, and I was too impressed by the wrong things to listen. Donald sent a surprisingly thoughtful email, admitting he'd always felt uneasy about Trevor but did not trust his gut because everyone else seemed so sure. That dinner became a turning point for Emily's family. Patricia started asking me about my work, actually listening when I explained what I did. Donald invited me to lunch, just the two of us, and asked questions about how to spot financial scams. Even Brooke, after the initial heartbreak, seemed to look at me differently. The trial took place 6 months later. I testified about the investigation, explaining how we built the case, and I watched as Trevor Lancaster's defense crumbled under the weight of the evidence. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. His co-conspirators received similar sentences. The judge made a point of saying that people who prey on the vulnerable deserve the harshest penalties the law allows. Emily was in the courtroom gallery, watching. Afterwards, she took my hand as we walked out of the courthouse. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "Not just because you took down Trevor at dinner, though I admit that was satisfying to watch. I'm proud because you do a job that actually matters. You protect people who cannot protect themselves. And that's worth more than any Porsche." 6 months later, we bought a new car. Nothing fancy, just a reliable Toyota that fit our budget and our values. But Emily insisted on one thing. She wanted a bumper sticker. It said, "My husband is a compliance officer, and he's a hero." It is cheesy, it is a little embarrassing, and I love it. Sometimes people ask about it at stoplights or in parking lots. Emily always tells the story, not the whole story, but enough. About how I stopped a man who was hurting people, and how she learned that real success is not measured in bank accounts or sports cars. It is measured in the lives you protect and the integrity you maintain, even when everyone around you is chasing something shinier. I still see Patricia and Donald regularly. We have family dinners, though the atmosphere is different now. There is more respect, more genuine conversation. Patricia asks me about my cases, the ones I'm allowed to discuss. Donald wants to understand how federal investigations work. They have both become advocates for consumer protection, sharing information about scams with their friends and warning others to be skeptical of anything that seems too good to be true. Brooke eventually started dating again. She is more cautious now, more skeptical, but also more genuine. She told Emily that watching Trevor's downfall taught her that character matters more than charisma, and that often the quiet, steady people who are not seeking the spotlight are the ones doing the real work. As for that dinner, it has become a family legend. The night Nathan took down the con man. Patricia tells the story at parties, though she omits the parts where she was telling me to behave and worrying about impressing Trevor. Donald claims he knew something was off about Trevor from the start, which is not entirely true, but I let him have his version. Emily tells the most accurate version. She does not hide her mistakes or pretend she was on my side from the beginning. She owns the fact that she let herself get swept up by the wrong things, and that she learned a hard lesson about what truly matters. And I went back to work at the FTC, still pushing papers, still collecting my government paycheck, still driving a car that will never turn any heads. But I sleep well at night, knowing the work I do protects people who need it, that the quiet, boring work that Trevor Lancaster mocked is exactly what brought him to justice. Sometimes I think about that dinner and what would have happened if Trevor had not been so arrogant. If he had just been polite, kept his mouth shut, and not spent 2 hours explaining how superior he was to everyone at the table. Maybe he would have gotten away with it for longer. Maybe the investigation would have taken a different turn. But arrogance is usually what brings men like Trevor down. They cannot help themselves. They need everyone to know how smart they are, how successful, how much better they are than everyone else. And that need to impress, that desperate hunger for validation, makes them careless. It makes them brag about things they should keep secret. It makes them mention their company's name at a family dinner where a federal compliance officer is sitting quietly, taking notes. Comment: I hope this story resonated with you as much as it did with me. It's a powerful reminder that your self-worth should never be up for debate, no matter who is at the table. Sometimes, choosing silence isn't a sign of weakness, but a commitment to your own peace. True kindness includes the courage to set boundaries and protect your integrity. Healing in any relationship begins when we take responsibility for our part, not when we're proven right. You deserve to be in rooms where you're valued for your character, not for what you can provide. Surrounding yourself with people who see the real you is the greatest success of all. Remember to be kind to yourself on your journey, and always choose what feels right over what looks impressive. Thank you for being here and sharing this space with me. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.